Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our very first episode of An American in Thailand. We air this program every Friday, and this program is broadcast to you from Ratchamakan University of Technology, Peranakan. As with all of our programs we do here, I will be bringing this program to you in two parts. For the first part, I will introduce a certain topic about me being an American here in Thailand. It may be something about food, or travel, or cultural issues. We'll talk generally about that topic. Then we'll take a quick break, and in the second part of our program, we will get into examples and more specifics about that issue. Then we'll get to the news and latest updates from the university as always. Hello everyone, my name is Gary Gray and I am your host for An American in Thailand. I am an American English teacher here at Ratchamakan University of Technology, Peranakan, and this is our very first episode of this program. I do host another program here on our system, and it is called Musical Musings. We air that program every Wednesday at 1 p.m., but this is a new program we're bringing you. And it's going to be just generally about my experiences here in Thailand. Things that might be interesting, weird, different, fun, whatever it may be. Things for someone that is an American who is either visiting or living here in Thailand. It may sometimes be about visiting, even though I do live here, because we may sometimes talk about travel and various places to go, things like that. For today's episode, what we're going to talk about is one of the very first things that I noticed when I moved here, and that is cooking. Now, I did not suffer from much culture shock. The phrase culture shock means when you move to a new place and there are things you are not used to, and they're such a big deal that they actually bother you. It's hard for you to actually just live your life every day because of these things that are different about the culture you're living in. I had visited Thailand many times before I decided to move here, so there wasn't really too much that surprised me. I've run into a few things. A very simple one is like the word stupid. The way we use that here in Thailand is very different than the way it's used in the West. Here in Thailand, that's a very bad word. You don't say that to someone. You don't call someone that. You don't call something that. No. Stupid is a very bad word here. In most Western cultures, including in America, it can be bad like that, but it depends how you use it. Depends how you use it. It can also just mean that something is silly. And when you use it that way, it's actually used in a positive way. It's a good thing. It's almost a sarcastic word because you're using it as if it's bad, but it means good. And it means that something is funny in a very silly way. And when we say something is silly funny, it means it's almost like childish humor. It's like a joke a little kid would come up with, something like that. That's what I mean by silly. And that's how we sometimes use the word stupid in America. So it can be simple things like that. Obviously, I'm probably not going to do a whole episode on the word stupid. So no, that's not what we're talking about today. But that is a cultural difference that surprised me. And so now I have to try to make sure I do not use that word. I try my best not to say that word because I know that bothers people. So that's what we're talking about. Cultural things that you have to really get used to. And today we're going to talk about cooking. Now, I am someone who loves to cook. Am I good at it? I would say I'm mostly good at it. It depends on what it is we're cooking. There are certain things, no. If I'm cooking things like a steak or something like that, I always have a hard time knowing how long to cook it, at what temperature, and so I always have to check to see if it's done, and that means slicing it open, and then if it's not done and you have to cook it, once it's sliced open, it doesn't cook kind of the same way, and it's not exactly ruined, but it's not as good as it used to be. So there are some things, no, I can't really cook very well. I mean, I can cook a steak. It's okay. It's okay when I do it. But I'm better at some things than other things. Like, for example, baking, I'm pretty good at. So now what we're going to talk about today, when we talk about cooking, is I'm not really going to talk about certain types of food, except maybe in the context of how you cook them. I'll talk about that kind of more in the second half of our program. What I'm talking about more is like the kitchens. So like what you have available to you to cook with. How you do your cooking. With what? What do you use to do your cooking? And of course, not every house or condo here in Thailand is the same. I've had some condos that have more appliances than other condos have had. I haven't been in too many houses. Most of the houses I've been in, even though the kitchen's a little bit bigger, they seem to have the same sort of appliances that a condo would have. But because they're bigger, there's more space for other appliances, so I'm guessing some of them, even though it's not the ones I have been in, I'm guessing some of them, it may be more common to have more appliances in them. So what we're going to talk about is not going to apply to every single kitchen in Thailand versus America. But this is mostly what I have experienced as an American living here. And keep in mind, I have mostly lived in small condos. Okay, so the biggest thing is exactly what I mentioned. The appliances. An appliance is like a machine that you use to do something. So if you're thinking about kitchen appliances, most of you probably have a rice cooker. Okay, that's fine. Okay, a lot of you may even have a blender. Okay, that's fine. But most kitchens, again, the ones I am used to here in Thailand, do not have the large appliances. Almost none of them have an oven. You can go to an electronics electric store and buy an oven, but it sits on the stovetop, and it sits on the countertop, and it takes up counter space. In America, it's built into the counter. And then there's either usually countertop over top of it, or in most cases, there's an oven on top of it. And an oven is another thing you don't have here. Again, you can go buy one. Most of them are single burner ovens. And we'll talk stoves. A stove is something that you put a pot on to cook on top of. That's a stove. I often call a stove and an oven kind of almost the same thing. They are absolutely not the same thing. I do that because, again, in America, it's part of the same machine. You have the oven and the stove on top, all one major appliance. Okay, so most of them do not have an oven here. All right. Another difference, and again, this isn't going to be true of all. In fact, I've seen plenty of kitchens in America that are more like the Thai version in this case. But again, we're just talking about what most kitchens are like. And that is that here in Thailand, most kitchens have a single sink. I mean, in America, it's still one unit. You would still call it a sink. But there are two, what we call basins, the bowls that you run the water into. That's called a basin. In America, most sinks will have two basins. Why? That seems a little silly, right? Why? Well, a lot of times you will fill up one basin with soap and water. Just fill it up so that you're not just constantly running water. Constantly running water is probably wasting more water than actually filling the whole basin up, especially if you have a lot of dishes to do. Now, the only good thing, I'm not saying everything about America is better. The one good thing about just running the water is if you have a whole lot of dishes to do, then the water in the basin might start to get dirty, and so you're washing dishes in dirty water. That's a little gross. I mean, they probably still get clean because you're washing them with soap as well, and then you will rinse them off. And that's what the second basin is for, to run the water to rinse them off in. And then we usually have like a rack or something over next to the sink to dry them off. One other thing that we have with those sinks, and I did not even write this in my notes, which surprises me. It's one of the biggest things that drives me crazy about Thailand. Almost everywhere I have been, I've only had one condo that was not like this, and it's because I requested it, and so they did it for me. Almost every condo I have lived in here in Thailand, when you run the water in the kitchen, there's only cold water. No hot water heater for the kitchen. Hot water is very good at killing bacteria and viruses. Now, of course, it does really need to be quite hot, so I'm not even sure you'd want to put your hands in the water. So does your water heater even go hot enough to get it that hot? I don't know. But it also helps just with the cleaning because hot water helps break down grease as well. So having hot water, when I have a greasy pan or a greasy plate, trying to clean that in the kitchen here in Thailand, with no hot water, I have to clean it like 3 times with lots and lots of soap and clean it again to make sure you get all the grease and oil off. So that's another difference. Okay, another difference with appliances is that most refrigerators here don't have a real freezer. They'll have a freezer section, but it's kind of open to the rest of the refrigerator, and that's actually how it cools the rest of the refrigerator. Air flowing down from the freezer. So the freezer is not as cold as like a freezer in America would be. And the reason that matters is because it's not going to keep food fresh as long. Food is not going to last as long in a freezer here in Thailand as it would in America. And the last one I want to mention isn't really about appliances, but it's about the utensils. Even the utensils we use here aren't necessarily different. They may be harder to find because not many people have an oven. And because not many people have a stove, you don't need the same utensils. For example, I like to make something called mashed potatoes. We're going to use the second half for most of our examples, but I'll mention this one right now because it happens to have to do with the utensils that are hard to find. I like to make mashed potatoes. You have potatoes, you boil them, you cut them up a little bit first so they're in smaller chunks, you boil them, they get soft, and you smash them and mix them with a little bit of milk and butter. That's mashed potatoes. The potato masher, the thing you mash the potatoes with, is quite hard to find. Quite hard. Okay. And the final issue with these appliances, again, it's mostly about appliances. The final issue with these appliances is that their quality tends to be lower. Why? Because most people here don't use them. So who cares? You're just going to use it once in a while. It's not very good quality. What I have found is the average electric burner stove that you buy, it's very difficult to control the temperature on it. Very difficult. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that in our second half of our program. But it's a problem. It's a low quality product. It just is not very good. Okay, and the last point before we take a break is what's interesting about this is that it sounds like I'm just complaining about the Thai kitchens. They're so terrible. I will actually mention a couple of good things about them in the second half of our program. But it's also not as though that's unique in the world. I will say that most kitchens I have seen throughout the world, and I have seen them in many different countries, in Japan, in China, in several places in Europe, most of them are more similar to American kitchens. So would I say that American kitchens are better? Yeah, probably. It is the way more people do their kitchens. But a lot of them are kind of halfway in between. There are some other places where having an oven is not normal. Or they maybe have smaller appliances. Like in Britain, a lot of times they have a little small oven. Or they have a little small refrigerator. Japan, same thing, because they don't have a lot of space. A lot of their appliances are smaller. Their kitchens tend to be smaller than American kitchens. American kitchens, I mean, of course, they're not all big. Some people live in small apartments. My partner has a very tiny apartment in New York City. His kitchen is smaller than anything I've ever seen here in Thailand. You can barely even stand up in it. There's barely enough room to even open the refrigerator door to take stuff out of the refrigerator because you'll hit the wall on the other side. That's how small it is. It's as wide as the refrigerator door. So I'm not saying they're all huge, but in general, America has more open space. We have a lower population relative to the size of the country, although Thailand's isn't that high either. So people are spread out more. So people have bigger houses, and because you have a bigger house, you can have a bigger kitchen. More space, more countertop space, which is another thing that I like about the American kitchens more. There's more counter space. So when you look at these other kitchens from other parts of the world, they're kind of more in between what you see in America versus what you see in Thailand. They generally do have more appliances like you see in America, but they do tend towards the smaller side like you see here in Thailand. Again, not all kitchens in Thailand are small either. I know that. My partner here, his sister has a brand new house they built. Their kitchen is quite large, and in fact, I'm quite surprised they don't have any of the appliances. They have all this counter space and the big table in the middle of the kitchen. Nice big kitchen. Beautiful kitchen. No appliances. They cook outside. All right. So, let's take a break now, and when we come back, we will talk more about the details of the kitchen differences. Welcome back. All right, so we're talking about culture shock with cooking. And primarily, we're not talking specifically about types of food. Some people get culture shock from that. You know, a lot of Thai people make fun of Westerners because they can't take the spicy food. That could be a culture shock for a Westerner because we have lots of Thai food in America. But when they make it in America, they cut down on the spices. So if someone from America comes here, goes to an authentic Thai restaurant, they may be shocked by how spicy it is. And so that might be a culture shock to them because they may have difficulty figuring out, well, where can I go to eat? Things like that. We're not talking about that today. What we're talking about with respect to cooking is we're talking about kitchens, what we have in our kitchens. So in the first part of our program, we talked a lot about the appliances, a little bit about kitchen size as well. And that does matter as well because the Thai kitchens also don't have as much space, usually. Again, we're talking usually, a typical kitchen. I've seen some big Thai kitchens. I mentioned in the first half, my partner's sister has a big kitchen. I've seen some tiny kitchens in America. My ex-partner in America has a tiny kitchen in New York. So yes, they can vary. But generally, the kitchens here are a lot smaller, so there's a lot less counter space. And the reason that becomes a problem is because it combines with the lack of appliances. Like if you want an oven, like I told you at the beginning, I do a lot of cooking. I have an oven. In America and a lot of other countries, they have an oven that's built in underneath the counter. So you either have the countertop goes over it, or there's a stove that goes over it. Whereas when I want to use a stove, I have to use one of those single burner stoves and put it next to my oven on the countertop. So no matter how you do it, you're taking up extra countertop space with the appliances, and you've already started out with less counter space because your kitchens are small. So it's very difficult to actually conveniently really make a full meal in a Thai kitchen. And again, we're talking about people's personal kitchens. Most restaurants, of course, are going to have an oven. I mean, you walk down the street, you see bakeries and things like that. Obviously, they have an oven. They're baking food. They're able to bake stuff. So, yes, stores, restaurants, things like that, they're going to have all of those appliances. It's not like you cannot buy those appliances here in Thailand. You can. In fact, I just saw, on my way in here, on Facebook Marketplace, I saw an advertisement for a big gas stove with the big gas oven with the stove burners on top, just like we have in the West. And it was advertised as being restaurant equipment. So yeah, they're trying to sell it to a restaurant. And it looks no different. It doesn't look bigger like something you would have at a restaurant. It looks no different than something that someone would have at their house in America. Some of the ones for restaurants are much bigger, and they may have 6 burners on the top of the stove, for the stove, on top of the oven, instead of just 4. No, this one I saw advertised has 4. 4 burners for the stove. That's normal in most houses in America for their oven and stove, the stove being the top part, to have 4 burners on it. That's normal. And that's what I saw advertised. A very normal oven and stove that people would have in their house in America. And it's advertised as being for restaurants here in Thailand. Okay, so why does it matter, though? Who cares? Who cares? Restaurants tend to be cheaper here. You can go get fried rice at a corner restaurant and pay 50 baht for it, which is less than $2 in American money. You can't buy anything for $2 in America. Never mind a whole meal. So who cares? Just eat out. It's easier. You don't have to wash the dishes. Who cares? Also, just about every one of these Thai kitchens comes with a microwave. So if it's something simple and easy like that, Just use the microwave. And most microwaves have certain settings which actually do an okay job of cooking normal food. Most people actually don't realize that because they don't know how to do it, honestly. And I've kind of figured out how to do it. You can actually do a fair bit of cooking in a microwave. Not all of it. There's still some. Not very easy. But you can do more than you think. For example, one thing that a lot of people think you can't do in a microwave oven is a baked potato, because the potato's going to get all hard. No. That's absolutely wrong. I can cook a perfect baked potato in a microwave oven. So, what's the problem? Why is it so bad? All right, well, let me explain, and the way I'm going to explain it isn't necessarily that it's bad, because part of it does have to do with the food we eat. In Thailand, a lot of the type of meals that we have kind of combine all the food together. Like if I think of papaya salad, everything kind of goes all together. I mentioned fried rice. All the ingredients kind of go all together. Mularb. Larb is kind of like that. All the ingredients kind of go together. Now it is possible, especially if there's a bunch of you eating, you might have 2 or 3 different dishes instead of just eating one dish. But a lot of times, especially if you're just eating by yourself or it's just 2 people, you and your partner or whatever, you may just have one dish with your meal. Because all of the ingredients go together into one thing. We often do not do that in Western cooking. We have multiple, like, side dishes is what we call it, with a main dish. Like if you were to eat steak. And this you're probably kind of familiar with because you do this in Thailand as well if you order steak. They serve it more like Western style when you order something like that. You get steak and then you're going to get vegetables as a side order. And so you may have 2 or 3 different things when it's being presented that way, when it's being served that way. You may have 2 or 3 or 4 different things. That's when this becomes a problem in Thailand because you have this one burner stove. In America, our stoves have 4 burners. Now, most of the times, we're not cooking 4 things at once. That's a lot to kind of keep track of and stir and do whatever you need to do, and the timing is different on them, and making sure everything finishes at the same time. Not easy. We're not usually doing 4 things at once. But it's not uncommon at all to be doing 2 things on the stove at once. And maybe sometimes, especially if it's a big event, like Thanksgiving, Christmas, some other party you're having, maybe you're doing 3. 2 or 3 things on the stove at one time. You can't do that in Thailand if you have just the single burner item. So for me, coming from a Western culture, that's a problem. And again, I understand why it's not really a big problem here in Thailand. The food preparation tends to be different. Everything tends to go together. Again, not always. Like if you eat steak, you eat it kind of like we do in the West. Yeah, yes. There are some meals like that. And there are some meals where we eat it all together as one as well. Like if we were to have pasta, it's usually one big pasta meal with everything, whatever you want thrown in there. The pasta and the sauce is the basic thing, but then sometimes people want meat. Sometimes people want seafood in it, so whatever. You want cheese on top of it sometimes, whatever. It's all, boom, all together as one. So sometimes we eat the same way that you guys would normally eat. So again, we're talking about more generally, what is the kind of normal, most common way of serving meals? And here in Thailand, it would be one thing. Whereas in America, it's going to be multiple things. And so we need those multiple stove burners to cook everything. So that's one thing. Another thing is baking. We do a lot of that in America. We love to bake. Christmas, everyone likes to bake cookies. I bake cookies for my class a lot of times. People like to bake. You can't bake here in Thailand if you don't have an oven. I mean, there are ways you can do cookies in an air fryer. That's a little bit weird, though, and they generally don't come out very good, and you have to do, like, a few at a time. So you'll be cooking them. If you need to make a large batch, you'll be cooking for days getting that all done. You need an oven. You need an oven to bake. And in America, again, easy. Everyone has an oven. Here in Thailand, most people do not. You have to go buy one. And as I said at the beginning, I am a little more familiar with condos because that's where I live. I suspect in houses, just because there's going to be more space, more of those are going to have ovens. It's going to be more common in a house. But I do know, like I said, my partner's house, his sister's house, no oven. So I know it's not that common. Whereas in America, it's almost a guarantee. House has oven. Cannot bake without an oven. Also, even just cooking certain types of meat. You want to roast duck. You want to roast chicken. How are you going to do that? There are some weird and creative and interesting ways to fry them in a pan, like a big giant pan. I guess you could do that. If it's a small one and you have a really big size air fryer, I guess you could do it that way. Do it in the air fryer. Okay. I suppose that's possible. But generally, again, you're going to need the oven in order to do that. You're not going to cook chicken or duck. Not a whole one, a whole roasted one. Obviously, if it's cut in pieces, you're doing stir fry, you do that on the single stovetop. That's easy enough. But if you're doing a whole chicken or duck roast, nah, you need the oven. And the last thing I'll mention was we mentioned earlier in the first part about the electric stovetops not being high enough quality. Well, that becomes a problem if you're really into cooking, like I am, and you enjoy making things like sauces. Like for pasta, I like to make my own spaghetti sauce. There are ways where you can do that pretty quickly and easily. It doesn't have to take hours. But there are nice ways to cook it slowly, gently, which does take hours. And I actually kind of prefer doing it that way. It helps the tomatoes break down better. So you don't have to use a blender, which I prefer not to, because I don't mind having a little bit of texture in my sauce. Takes hours to cook. That I basically can't do that anymore now that I live in Thailand. Can't even do it. Because the temperature control on those single burner electric induction stoves, terrible. And a lot of the pots that you buy here are also quite low quality. So it burns right through, even on the lowest setting. Because the problem with those induction stoves is the lowest setting does not actually heat up to that setting. They heat up all the way, and then they just turn off faster to try to keep the temperature down. Whereas the higher settings just heat up longer to try to push the temperature up. But they're all actually, the burner, the element, is actually getting to the same temperature, no matter what setting you put it at. So if you don't have a really good, thick, solid pot that helps distribute the heat, forget it. even at the lowest setting, unless you're stirring it constantly, and you're not supposed to have to stir the sauce constantly because it's sitting on the stove for hours. You're not supposed to have to stir it constantly. If you don't stir it constantly, it will burn. So am I just saying, so it sounds like I'm just really ripping into the Thai kitchens. I'm just saying they're worse all around. They're not really. They're built for the Thai culture. As I said, you generally don't need 4 burners for your stove. Oven, I'm a little surprised those aren't more popular. Since I have seen that people do like you can buy roast duck at the store and things like that. People do seem to like that type of meal. Roast duck, roast chicken. A little surprised that the ovens aren't a little more common. Thai people seem to like baked goods. When I make cookies for my students, they love them. But mostly, I get it. So I'm not really saying that the Thai kitchens are worse. And in fact, in some ways, they're better. The fact that they're smaller means they're easier to kind of take care of. The upkeep is easier. Easier to clean them, everything like that. Just easier to upkeep. Because I like to cook so much, sometimes I'm tired when I'm done cooking. And then I'm too lazy to clean. And then the stuff sits there until the next morning. Oy vey. And now, you know how dirty stuff, if it sits overnight, it kind of gets caked on. And it's harder to clean now. And the smaller kitchen, less to clean. That's better. Also, just for the cost of like a condo or a house. The fact that the kitchen is smaller means that the whole condo or the whole house can be smaller. It means the price of the house is going to be less. The price of the condo is going to be less. Even if you still have a nice sized living room or bedroom, you've saved up some space and saved some money with the smaller kitchen. So it's also more cost effective in that way. It doesn't have the same appliances. The appliances aren't free either. That's more money. So it's more cost effective that way as well. So I would say that the Thai kitchens are probably more cost effective and more convenient in that way. Personally, for me, just because of what I'm used to, even though I have lived here for almost 8 years, I still prefer the American style kitchen. I find it very frustrating that I have to lose half of my counter space because I want an oven. And so now I don't have enough counter space to prepare other things. So it's very difficult to work in the kitchen. And there are little workplace islands that they call them that you can buy, like a wood top thing you can put in the middle of your kitchen. But the kitchen's already so small, I can't even fit that in there. So I can't do that either. So yeah, I certainly do prefer the American style kitchen, but I'm not trying to say I'm not airing this program here in Thailand saying, "Oh, Thai kitchen's so bad, so terrible." No, I'm just pointing out that it's different, and I am not very prone to culture shock because I visited here many times before I moved here. Of course, I only visited. I never tried to cook here. Never cared about the kitchens, never paid attention to the kitchens. So this was one of the few things that caused me culture shock when I came here to Thailand, was when I saw the kitchens. I was like, what the heck is this? Where's the stove? Where's the oven? The sink has only one basin in it, and it has no hot water, and there's not much counter space. What are you supposed to do in this kitchen? So that was a culture shock moment for me. But again, I'm not actually saying that the Thai kitchens are worse. They're worse for how I like to cook, yes, but they fit the Thai culture well. They are what they need to be for Thai cooking, for Thai people. They're fine. There's nothing wrong with the Thai kitchens. Just for me and my American cooking style, wow, it was a big difference. It was a shock to me. All right. So again, not saying the Thai kitchens are bad. They're different. And it was a moment of culture shock for me. So that's our first topic. Our first episode here is about cooking in Thailand. And we talked specifically about the kitchens. Thank you for joining us for today's American in Thailand program. Please stay with us and tune back in next week where I will bring you another interesting topic about being an American here in Thailand. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thank you.